Hey, Rush Nation, what's going on? Welcome to the 5 Yard IDP pod with me, Nath Davis. Today we will be reviewing week 15 and getting you ready for week 16. I can't believe it's Christmas week, but here we go. Hopefully, you've all had a good week and progressed in your fantasy playoffs, and hopefully, the COVID riddled week didn't screw you over too much. Unfortunately, guys, I think we're in for another screwed up week. The Chiefs have already been hit hard, and oh yeah, hopefully most of those are vaccinated, so they should still have a shot of playing. Anyway, if you don't already, please tune into our flagship Dynasty, College, and DFS shows, as they will help you now and in the future bring in those ships. Mr. Veal, how are you? Good week?
Yeah, I noticed it was Christmas. Um,
Really?
no, it just snuck up on me.
Mm.
Um,
He loves that,
yeah,
Matt.
good week. Yeah, I mean, some of the games were not classics by any stretch, but I think that was indicative of teams just making do, and we'll get into that obviously as we go through the pod. Fantasy wise, well, the good news is I've got through in our Ray Lewis League, and you and I are going to meet in round two.
Yeah, you had a good
And
week. I saw you.
just fair warning, I did top score this week in the league as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, I'm coming to get you. Yeah, not too good in sort of Lawrence Taylor, but so focus on the
No.
positives. But
Yeah, I'm out in that one. I had a pretty. It was a pretty bad week. I got a lot of Brady, and I got a lot of. There's quite a few players as well that just um, didn't show up at all, and there was some
I think
shocking
roster,
performances.
yeah, but I mean, hey, like the pros, roster management in fantasy at the moment it's carnage. You really are looking at it sort of minute to minute and just doing the best you can. So if you've had a good weekend, fair play. So yeah, we'll see what.
Right, right. I better do. I'll do the bit. I'll do the bit I've got to do every week. As this pod and others we do are supported by Manscaped. As you all know, Manscaped are our sponsors, and they are the market leader in men's below the waist grooming. They've just released the Lawnmower 4.0, which is a fantastic bit of kit. One of the best things about it is the skin safe technology, so you get no nicks on your bits, and you can receive 20% off with the code 5yard at manscaped.com. It really is a game changer in that area, and you're missing out if you do not have one. As I said, you can get 20% off with the code 5yard at manscaped.com. There's also free worldwide shipping, so sort yourself out and get involved. So let's kick it off. It's me and the Thursday night game. 49ers at Titans. So up front, the 49ers are rotating their pass rush. And in week 15, that was apparent where Arden Key, Nick Bosa, Samson Abukum all got to Matt Ryan in the 31-13 win against the Falcons. Fred Warner, he top scored and played like an absolute tackle machine. Um, it was it was decent performance by the 49ers. I really like the 49ers this moment. It's nice to see them at some form, but this is going to be a tough one against Tennessee. Just a note as well for the Niners. Al Shahir, he missed last week, but he should be back this week. And he's actually my pick this week to top score from the linebackers. Going over to the Titans, their D is elite. And have put up some really good numbers throughout the season. However, it wasn't a big scoring week in week 15. It wasn't good points offensively or defensively when looking at the Titans. It was a low scoring loss against the Steelers. The Titans did shut down the running game from the Steelers, so it would be tough sledding for the Niners. Looking at the game as a whole, it's a tough one to call for me. I fancy the 49ers offense, and I think Jimmy G is playing well. But will the Titans do a job on them? Yeah, I'm going Titans. I'm going to go Titans on the game. I think they'll stifle the Niners, and I fancy a decent score for the 49ers linebackers and their pass rushers. Tannehill, you know what he's like; he will take a sack or three. But I'm not highlighting anywhere else. That's why I haven't gone on about it, because there's no point in talking about what DBs have done if I don't think they're going to be really relevant in this game. I'm not quite sure who the wide receivers are going to be again. they're saying that AJ Brown might be back, but it's more likely to me that Tannehill will be, will take a sack or two, and they will run the hell out the ball. So I expect, like I said, I expect it to be tight up front, and the linebackers where the points will be for the Niners. So there we go. What do you reckon, Brian? How are you calling that one?
I like the Niners at the moment. As you say, they seem to be sort of rolling into a bit of form. The Titans, all right, I got caught with this the other week because I said, well, they find a way to win, and they didn't. But I don't know. They're just one of those. They seem to be coming, or are becoming, one of those sort of postseason teams. They will just get there.
Yeah,
And they'll do whatever they need to do, and then they tend to fall apart in the postseason, unfortunately. So
it was an interesting game against the Steelers. I felt that it was quite. It's one of those games. I actually quite enjoyed the watch, really, because both teams seem to quite put each other under quite a lot of pressure and concentrate on neutralising the other one rather than scoring. You know what I mean? Offensively, it was like the stop. We'll stop what they're doing first, and then we'll try and outscore them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you have those games sometimes where you go, they're that busy watching about what the opponents are going to do rather than go out and play their own game. And I think, you're right. That's probably a classic.
God, it was hard. It was a hard watch, and it was a hard fought
not
game.
pretty, but tactically,
Yeah,
interesting. But yeah, it's not going to make top of Game Passes list anytime soon. I'd say the Titans probably shade it. Yeah. So,
go on, mate. I've got you. You're next. You're the Christmas Day ones, I think. Browns at
first
Packers.
one. So Browns at the Packers. So Browns. Okay, they lost to a Raiders team that I said last week had sort of given up, and we're just waiting for the end of the season. Well, that's this season. But to be fair, I mean, they went into the game missing 8 starters, so come on, and Nick Mullins under centre. So top IDP performers for the Brownies. We are going to mention quite a few people today that we won't have touched on most of the season as with last week. So top scorer for the Browns. Safety MJ Stewart, 21 points. Corner Greedy Williams, 15. Linebacker Karamoa, sort of 13 points. DLs, Sheldon Day, Joe Jackson, both crept into double figures. So, there was some decent numbers around sort of fantasy-wise for the Browns. Packers, well, they've clinched the NFC North title for the 3rd year in a row. Tight win over the Ravens. Top IDP sort of week 15 performers. Devondre Campbell, linebacker, 22.5 points, 2nd sack of the season. Elsewhere, the other top scorers all came in the DBs. Safety Adrian Amos, someone we've mentioned quite a lot, sort of 14.5 points. And then the 2 corners, Eric Stokes and Rasul Douglas, both scored sort of reasonably well. So in terms of the matchup, assuming both teams are somewhere close to full strength, that's taking a bit of a leap of faith at the moment. But on paper, this should be a good defensive clash. Against the pass this season, you look at the Browns ranking 8th, Packers 9th. Against the run, Browns 9th, Packers 11th. So there are still on paper 2 good Ds there. As far as the Browns go, with the exception of sort of 15 sack Myles Garrett, and watch Garrett, he did play, or he started Sunday with a groin injury. I think it will take more than a strain to keep him out of this weekend's game. But Garrett's side, the Browns have they've got linebacker Anthony Walker back. He's got 85 tackles off 9 games this season. He's got to be a must start if you've got him on the roster. Also at linebacker Karamoa, I would expect to be busy enough to rack up sort of double figures again this season. And if he does it, it'll be the 5th game in a row. So he's putting up some consistent numbers. I would steer clear of the Browns DBs this week for a kickoff. The 2 top scorers from last week, they ain't going to do that very often. Let's be honest about it. Tackle numbers for the safeties are okay, and I guess Aaron Rodgers, you'd expect to sort of throw it around, but you could look at a John Johnson or a Denzel Ward. But bear in mind, Aaron Rodgers has only thrown 4 picks all season. There's just not enough value in the DBs for the Browns against this Packers sort of offense. Moving over to Green Bay, well, we expect the Browns to lean on the run game as always. So, straight away you're looking at the front seven for the Packers. Devondre Campbell's a no-brainer, 125 tackles on the season already. I like Rashawn Gary in this matchup. Again, partly because you can play him at DL. He's one of those sort of flexible players on sleeper. His tackle numbers aren't great, but he is the Packers sort of sack leader at the moment, 6.5, and Baker is, top 10 in the sack chart. So, and at DB, I like safety, Adrian Amos, his tackle numbers are good, 79 on the season, a couple of picks. An outside waiver pick possibly for Green Bay in this matchup, and it would be the DB, and I have mentioned him, it would be corner Rasul Douglas. I expect the Packers to win the game, and I expect them to, they'll be looking to try and bag this number 1 seed in the NFC. So I expect the Browns at some point to be chasing the game, as we've seen in matchups like this before, and, Baker being forced to throw. Douglas has got 3 picks. He's got a couple of IDP TDs off the back of that. He's got 10 passes defended. Plus, he's picked up over 60 IDP points in his last 3 games. So, and currently he's ranking sleepers sort of number 4 corner. So if there was an outside pick on either side, that would probably be it for me. Summing the game up, Packers win. I still think they're too strong for this Browns team. Even with players coming back, I still think the Browns have got inconsistency issues. So, and the Green Bay want that number 1 seed. So, yeah, I'm going to play safe and go with the Packers.
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. I got Packers. I mean, they look to me they're the most assured team in the NFL at this moment. They're the ones out of anyone that we've probably said it. They're probably going to lose. But you know what I mean. So far, everyone else seems to be, I don't know. It's all over the place. I'm going to go on to one of them now. And that's going to be the Cards. But so yeah, this game, right? Colts at Cards. Now, I'm going to start with the Colts. And I absolutely loved the Colts Pats game in week 15. Absolutely loved it. And it was a lesson in defensive pressure. Straight away, I was on Twitter. We were chatting away about various different things. And it was all about really the Colts game plan coming together and the Pats game plan. Well, they didn't have a plan B, really. So I sort of I'll talk you through how that sort of went, really. So with regard to Pats, what they want to do is they want to run the ball straight down the throat, and then they'll use like Ramondre Stevenson to go straight down the middle pretty much, and then they'll try and get to the edge with people like Bolden and a few others, maybe some jet sweeps and stuff like that, just to try and get to the edge. And what the Colts did is they were really strong up front. They stopped that run, the couple, like the 2 yards here, 3 yards there. They just didn't get them. So then they pushed to the edge, and they were so quick. The linebackers were lightning, and safeties. I'll mention them in a minute, but the speed of the linebackers getting to the edge. I mean, they still, a lot of the time when they actually did get to the edge, they ran out, didn't even get back to the line of scrimmage. It was like that field was just covered, and it forced Mac Jones to throw on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8 sort of yardage, which is what they just didn't want to do, and that's definitely not the game plan. When the Colts, obviously, they rely heavily on their run game, and that O-line of the Colts is something to worship. That is just quality. I mean, I know Jonathan Taylor is an elite back, but I mean, God, the O-line creates those lanes for him, and I tell you what, that was the problem. And the Colts got their 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards every sort of play, and the Pats didn't. And that was really it. And it was just down to that, like I said, the speed of the linebackers, and just being extremely strong up front. So yeah, that was kind of the game plan and how it all went. When you talk about the players that the Colts really, Darius Leonard top scored, and he went off on one. The other 2 I was going to mention, Bobby Okereke, he didn't actually score too well, but he was excellent. And veteran safety Andrew Sanajo, he's like an unsung hero, really, but he's absolutely lightning, and he just flies around. And like I said, and it was just, you could see the Pats getting more and more frustrated because they couldn't get that short yardage to sort of take that pressure off. They were constantly on the back foot, and even when they seemed to think they'd done their job, they just didn't get enough yardage. Um, Other players to mention from the Colts DBs, Kenny Moore, Kari Willis, they all played well. And again, that sort of played into that sort of plan B approach, because when Mac had to throw it, Moore and Willis were lapping it up. They absolutely loved it. They were tackling like crazy, and yeah, getting their hands in and just causing havoc. So Leonard top scored 31 points, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass defended, and 10 tackles. Virtually a full set from him. He was just awesome. Kenny Moore, 18.5 points. Kari Willis, 15.5 points. I know Kariki, 13.5 points. But yeah, that just summed up a really good performance by the Colts defensively. I thought they were lights out, really. Over to the Cardinals, and it's a complete flip, because it was an embarrassing defeat to the Lions for me. Detroit ran all over them. That was the bit I couldn't get my head around. Yeah, and with unknown backs as well, which going into this game is scary, because Jonathan Taylor, if they play like that, he's going to have an absolute field day. So, I mean, they've got to sort it out, and they've got to sort it out quickly. Also, even going after, not just talking about the run game. I mean, I thought it was pretty soft coverage at times from the secondary, in just giving up just plays. And it didn't look like the Cards D that we've seen this year, really. They just were off it, and yeah, I mean, Detroit were great, but they shouldn't have been allowed to do it. They just shouldn't have been allowed to do it, and that's the fact of the matter, really. So matchup wise in this, you're gonna have to like both linebackers from the Colts. I like both of them again, because, like I said, I can't see them playing any different to the way they played last week. Jordan Hicks from the Cardinals. I like, who else? I said about Kenny Moore at DB. I like Marcus Golden. He's got to be a must start as well. Apart from that, I wouldn't really particularly go anywhere else. Yeah, I just match prediction. I'll go straight to that. I've got to go all in on the Colts. I can't see the Cards disrupting this immense Colts O line, and therefore they won't be able to stop Jonathan Taylor, unless something miraculous happens. And no, I just can't see it. So yeah, it's Colts for me.
Well, unless Taylor gets COVID in the next couple of days.
Well,
so,
50-50 at the moment.
You can't rule it out. But yeah, I think, and I'm not surprised. I sort of expected you coming into the pod to really sort of focus on that sort of Saturday night game, because how could you not? I mean, we've banged on for the last few weeks about, how much confidence we both had, despite my Miami heritage in this sort of Patriots defense, and they just, they seemed not unstoppable, but just so well drilled, and like you said, for the O-line to hold that at bay, and for JT to run all over them, and Wentz didn't really have to do anything really, and so, and yeah, the Cards. Well, I'm going to talk about the Lions again shortly, but that was poor. When you got the Rams breathing down your neck, you can't turn in a performance like that. Not if you want to be taken seriously.
No, I mean, obviously we don't really talk about too much on the offensive side, but
no,
Kyler looks. It just looked a little bit lost in what he was doing, and just the choices that he made at the wrong kind of times. I thought they were running the ball when they shouldn't have been potentially running the ball. They should have been doing something a bit more creative with it, and I don't know. Just didn't. I don't like.
I mean, basically, they played into the hands of, as we've touched on, a very competent Colts defense. Really, in a way, they made it quite easy for them in some respects. So, or they're in danger of playing into the hands of a sort of Colts defense, because I don't know. Like you say, they turn in a performance like that, and it's going to be, how can you not be all in on the Colts? But I wouldn't be surprised if the Cards turn. I am going to go with the Colts. I am going to side with you, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think we
So,
can. I think I mean, if it does turn around and it does change, then it changes because they sort themselves out. But I mean, just off watching that, you just can't. I mean, the 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 Pats are more well drilled at the moment. I know what they're all about than than the Cards. So I don't. I just really worry for him in this. Taylor Taylor could be. He could be real. It could be. It could be big this week again. Could be like what happened to the Bills.
yeah, yeah. It's,
So you're next, and you got it's the Lions at
I'm
Falcons.
going to Lions, but before I do that, I'm gonna 1 second. I've got to take this thing off because I'm absolutely roasting in this.
Oh my god, there he is, bold as a coot.
Oh, God, that's better. Bloody
There
hell!
we go.
I see myself in the camera going a funny shade of crimson. Right, it's too warm in here. So yeah, I'm going to move on to the Lions at the Falcons. So okay, so on the last pod, I said the Falcons deserve credit for still being in the wild card hunt, despite limited sort of offensive options at the moment. And I was trying to sort of give them a bit of a shout out, and then they turn in a sort of 31-13 loss at the Niners. Now we've already touched on the Niners in a bit of a groove at the moment, but the Falcons were poor. Top IDP performers, slim pickings. Foyce Luke on at linebacker. Yeah, someone we mentioned sort of week in, week out. 13, even that's only 13.5 points, all tackles, adding to his 152 on the season. At a real stretch, at DB AJ Terrell. That's it. That's kind of it on the Falcons. As I say, it was a poor performance. Pretty much kills off their sort of wild card hunt sort of chances. On the Lions, we've already sort of just touched on this, but to be fair, I don't think anyone saw that 30-12 scoreline come in. I don't care how bonkers the season's been, and the defense did a proper number on this 10-win Cardinals team. Top performers, Charlie Harris, 37 points, 1.5 sacks, 2 QB hits, 3 tackles for a loss. A DB. I've been practicing this one because we haven't mentioned him very often. Amani Oruwarike. No, he's not Oruwari. Oruwarie. There we go. So 9 Oruwarie. So
Yeah, man.
I even wrote it down
Six
phonetically.
interceptions, didn't he? He had 6
Yeah,
on the season.
but I mean, he got 19 points, but he had that lovely sort of dive-in pick as well in the game. So,
Yeah.
but he scored well. Elsewhere at DB, AJ Parker, 15 points, and at linebacker, Jalen Reeves-Maybin went into double figures at 13. Matchup-wise, as usual, the Falcons' value has to be at linebacker. No great sort of shakes there. Deion Jones, Forsay Lucon, fairly safe picks. An outside pick for me this week would possibly be Dante Fowler. Yeah, I know his fantasy scores are a little erratic. His snap count is way lower than sort of Jones and Lucon. But despite missing 3 games on the season, he's still the Falcons sack leader with 4.5, going up against the 4th most sacked QB in the league. Plus, again, he's another one of those sort of LBs that you can slot in at defensive line. The main reason I like this as an IDP matchup and didn't want to skip over it is that in theory, these teams still have 2 pretty poor offenses.
Yeah.
So the D should be busy, both primarily at DL and sort of linebacker. The Falcons, because I think the Lions will, and Nathan's already touched on it, try and enforce that ground game that seemed to work so well against the Cardinals. The Lions, I expect them to try and do what most other teams have done against the Falcons, and that will be smother Kyle Pitts. So moving on to the Lions, and if you're looking for pickups in the playoffs late in the day in this banged up, COVID-riddled stage of the season, here we go. Because let's face it, most of these guys are going to be out there, as we've said before. DB, you can have a look at the safety, Tracy Walker, coming back into the mix for the Lions this weekend. Secondary, as I've said, are going to be worried about Pitts, and Walker is the Lions' joint highest tackler on the season. They've also got linebacker Alex Anzalone coming back. Mentioned him before. He's had a good season in a bad team. He's good for double fantasy figures whenever he's fit. and word is he should be back for Sunday. So, and Charles Harris, I mean, I mentioned him sort of half joking a couple of weeks ago. And let's just review. I mean, he's had a monster week in week 15. Obviously, he's trending up. He's the Lions sack leader now with 7.5. Matt Ryan has been stuffed 29 times this season. And again, he's another one of those linebackers that you can slot in at sort of DL on sleeper. So I think you could do an awful lot worse if you are short in DL or linebacker. But if you can play him at DL, happy days. I'd written in my summary earlier, because I did the notes for this on Monday evening. I was going to go with the Falcons because they've got something to play for. I'm not. I don't think I'm going to actually. I've had a day or two to think about it, and I am going to go for the Lions because the Falcons had something to play for this weekend, and they turned in a pretty mediocre performance. So I'm going to take a punt on the Lions because it doesn't really matter. I think there's some IDP value there from the Lions if you're short, but I'm going to take a punt on the Lions.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Falcons on this one, but it's just it is just the fact that I just think they're just slightly the better side. They are the better side
on paper, definitely.
But yeah, which team's the most with it at the moment? Probably the Lions. I don't know. It again. I probably if it was at the Lions, I think I probably. Yeah, I would go with them. I think I fancy that when that crowd gets behind them, especially now. They think they're on it was quite electric. Yeah, so it's interesting to see. But I'm going to go Falcons. You go Lions.
I'm going to take a punt on Detroit.
So my next game was the Bucks at Panthers, but I'm skipping that one. No real reason, just to the fact that I just see it as a Bucks win. I see, we'd be saying the same things in this kind of matchup. They would be, you're going to have to look at starting those Bucks pass rush, and even the DBs potentially, because I just read Matt Rule. It's just come out. The Panthers have just said that Cam Newton will start, but Sam Darnold will play at some point. I don't know what that means, and I don't know why you'd bother saying that, or even I don't understand really what they're doing. But again, if they're going to mix up and change their quarterbacks out, then
I mean, potentially for the Panthers this weekend. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see 3 different QBs, in various quarters. I mean, it's just that bonkers there at the moment. So,
but it's crazy because the thing is with any kind of QB as well. I mean, you look at it from the fact that you've got a game plan based on. But all of these guys are potentially in the market window. Okay, you say PJ Walker's not really, but he probably is as a backup for somebody else potentially, or to to enhance his career at the Panthers. And then you've got Cam. Well, he wants to save face anyway because he's that kind of guy. And then you've got Sam Darnold, who he's going to be trying to prove that he's still a franchise quarterback. So all these guys, once they're on the field, what they're going to try, I mean, they can't. How can you not help but try and force something that probably isn't going to be on against the Bucks? Out of all those teams to be pissing around, you don't want to be doing it against them. I know they had an awful week last week, and it was a game managed by the Saints. That was really what it came down to. But they're still the Bucks, and what a fixture to bounce back with. I'm sure they will as well, even if they haven't got many starting wide receivers. But there we go. Okay, so now I am Giants at Eagles. Right, so if I start with the Eagles, they were impressive. I thought they were impressive against Washington. It was a funny game to review. It felt like always, apart from they took a while to get going. They were 10 points down, I think, at the end of the first quarter. They didn't really get their run game going, and then it kicked in. And yeah, and then at that point, then I felt that the Eagles, as soon as they started to come back into it, then they got in front, and then they looked completely solid and in control of the game. Um, the D was very good in most areas, especially up front and at middle linebacker, where TJ Edwards and Alex Singleton both played well, actually. Um, even though Washington had standing QB, they still made a bit of a game of it. But Philly, like I said, I felt Philly were in control from pretty much the second quarter. As soon as they started scoring, it just felt like that you were watching a game where Washington hadn't taken full advantage of, they needed to be a couple of scores in front because they were going to come back, and they were going to come back fast, and they did. Points wise, in week 15, Fletcher Cox top scored. He got 1.5 sacks, and he's a must start in this one for me. In this matchup, TJ Edwards and Alex Singleton both over 15 points, and they're both, again, good starts in this matchup against the Giants. They got decent tackle numbers, both of them, and it's those three that they're the three that I would look at: Cox, Singleton, and TJ Edwards. So now Philly suddenly they're running the hell out of the ball. Well, they have been kind of all season, but they've got Miles Sanders back, and he played particularly well the other night. Or was it last night? I can't even remember now. It was all these. We just seem to have football on every night. So
it was
yeah,
sometime in the last 4 days.
well,
That's
they
all
played sometime. Yeah, I've
they
watched the
played
game
sometime in
twice.
the last 4 days. Yeah.
That's crazy.
May
But
still
yeah,
be playing now. I really don't know. But...
yeah. So Philly are running the hell out of the ball. Like I said, they're averaging between 30 and 40 carries per game. So expect that to happen in this one. So with that in mind, and obviously you've got Jalen Hurts as well, and Jalen Hurts will take the odd sack when the pocket clock closes around him. He's happy to take the sack. So with that in mind, I fancy Lorenzo Carter and Ty Crowder, who both had really good weeks in week 15 points wise for the Giants. And I can't see why they wouldn't both contribute well this week. The Giants lost 21-6 against Dallas. They didn't really play well as a unit. They gave up a lot of yardage over the middle. But yeah, it's a tough one to call because this would be a different game. It'd be a very different game. And I think it'd be a lot tighter, this one. But I do think IDP wise, this is one to sort of highlight potentially. DB wise, Julian Love and Logan Ryan, they scored well. But for me, the big play points will come from Philly. As Mike Glennon, he looked dodgy, I thought, under center. He threw a few wobblers in there, and I know it was against the Dallas D, which we know we keep going on about. But I'll tell you what, the Eagles, when they're on it, they do bring some serious pressure, and they did. I thought they were a handful pretty much all game, especially up front. As for the game, I'm going Eagles, and I think they might win this one comfortably if again, barring it's all on fitness. But yeah, I thought the Eagles were quite impressive, actually.
Yeah, it's and Philly are one of these teams that I've wanted to be, and I've wanted to be more positive about them, and every week I have been. They've sort of reverted to type, but they're in the mix, and like you say, they've got this ground game going now. They're funny fans though, Philly. I mean, they just once you get that ground game going, the fans do seem to get behind them, and I was listening to John Gonzalez on one of the pods this morning, who's a big Philly fan, and he was saying, he said, there's something wrong with us as a collective. As long as we run the ball, that's fine, but we still, even if we've got a good sort of potential QB, they want to get behind sort of the backup QB and sort of guard them anyway. But so I mean, Philly, I think will be comfortable in this. Saquon had a few flashes.
He did,
last game,
and Booker played well.
Yeah,
good
he
running
did.
back.
But you're right. I mean, Glennon, and if he's going to sort of throw iffy things over the middle, then and you've got linebackers like Alex and TJ there, then I expect Philly to be all over this. So I think it'd be fairly comfortable for him. Okay,
Ravens and Bengals. I got you.
Ravens at the Bengals. So Ravens off the back of a tough lost 31-30 to the Packers. So that drops them to 8-6, just below the 8-6 Bengals. And this is a wide open AFC North affair at the moment. Credit the Ravens, though. They seriously banged up both sides of the ball. So I know there's a lot of criticism over the ending the game with that sort of 2-point call, but they just couldn't afford really to go into OT. So top IDP performers, Patrick Queen, again, don't need to say too much about him. 18.5 points, all tackles. After a slow start, that's putting him on 83 total tackles for the season. Also at linebacker, Josh Bynes had a decent week, 16.5 points, including his second sack of the season. Bengals had a crucial, if somewhat unattractive win, 15-10 over the Broncos. Takes them top of the division, but only just. Top performers, someone else we've mentioned before, linebacker Jermaine Pratt, who is sort of floating around on a few waivers. 23 points, 15 tackles. Larry Ogunjobi, 18 points, 1.5 sacks. And also at DL, Khalid Kareem had a sort of half decent game at sort of 14 points. So the matchup,
We
look
expect
at the
some
Ravens.
Is Logan Wilson back this week? I don't know.
Yeah.
He is back.
That's what I've heard. Yeah. So looking at the Ravens D this week, once again they're going to be looking at the QB they're facing. I mean, Joe Burrow, he's going into this crucial matchup, and he's this is for top spot in the AFC North. And still picked. He's still the most sacked and sort of picked QB in the league. So outside of that, outside of the top tackling sort of Patrick Queen, someone else we've mentioned before at linebacker, Tyus Bowser. I know Josh Bynes scored way better on Sunday, but Bowser is currently the Ravens sack leader. And if you're after a big play this weekend, he's probably the linebacker that's likely to come up with it. Also, with all the injuries in the secondary, I wouldn't be surprised if corner Anthony Averrett's notched up a pick this Sunday. To me, if you're after a gamble in the secondary, then with Marlon Humphreys out, then but looking at the Bengals, who should be, all being well, should be facing up against Lamar Jackson. But to be honest, with his Bengals front line, I don't really give a shit. I don't think they give a shit about who's at QB. I mean, they'll just go out there and try and sack him, basically. So, as Nath mentioned, I mean, the good news is that they're going to have sort of Logan Wilson back. It's. I mean, the good news for Bengals fans, I mean, only Ryan Tannehill and their own Joe Burrow have been sacked more times this season than Lamar Jackson, who's currently on 38 for the season. So at DL, must starts, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard. But if you are short at DL, I have found Larry Ogunjobi on several waivers, which I've got to be honest, does surprise me. I mean, he's had 3 good fantasy weeks. He's got good tackle numbers. He's got 7 sacks on the season. I would slot him in.
Great matchup on this one.
He's someone we mentioned quite frequently. So, and as Nate says, in the matchup. So, as I mentioned, linebacker Wilson's going to be back. Again, another sort of readily available waiver surprise for me is Jermaine Pratt. I mean, he's posted 53.5 points in fantasy last 3 weeks. He's racked up 85 tackles on the season. I mean, I do, especially in sort of, larger leagues, I am struggling to understand why he's still out there. But I'd have no problem slotting him in this week. If you're short at linebacker.
The only concern is Wilson being back and how much it cuts into.
It'll eat into his snap count, no doubt.
But he's still been good. He's still been good anyway.
So DBs stick with the top safety, in terms of tackle numbers, really. Von Bell and Jesse Bates.
Yeah.
So summing the game up. I know I've done this before. I'm going to go with the Bengals.
Okay.
I know they've let me down before. I know they're a flawed team, especially on offense. Well, no, they're a flawed team on offense. I think the defense is good. We've said this all season. and I still think Baltimore are going to roll into this game missing a few key players. So,
Yeah.
as I say, they've let me down before, but I like the Bengals. They've been fun to watch, like a couple of other teams this season. So yeah, why
See,
not?
my call on this, I don't know when I don't know what mood I was when I picked all these games to pick, but I've kind of gone quite safe. I've just looked at a lot of it, and because I would like the Ravens to win this game, but not the Ravens, sorry, I would like the Bengals to win this game, but I've gone Ravens. I think it's just because, like you said, we just been when we have gone on about the Bengals, then Burrow's just had that week where he's just let us down. I mean, for me, it is that time of year where you do start holding a grudge on players that have let you down slightly, and it's like
No, no,
with
no.
me,
I started this with Shaq Barrett and the Tampa defense like
yeah.
4 weeks ago. So it's not. No, I
But
did
mine
it.
would be
I started well before Thanksgiving, I think. But
like Jamar Chase potentially as well, because Chase started particularly well this year, and then you sort of like go all in on him, and then it's been really hit and miss, especially the last few weeks um, with Burrow, and yeah, I don't know, I don't. It's I thought the Ravens done enough against the Packers for me to say they're still a good side. If the Packers had blown them out, I'd have been like, okay, with Lamar right, but actually they were not unlucky, but they were right there. Um, yeah, so I'm gonna go Ravens in this one. I'm gonna go that and just, but then Bengals might go off on one because they beat them, didn't they go and beat them earlier on in the season, big as well. Bengals
uh,
did.
it was before the bye, wasn't it? I mentioned
Yeah,
it a couple of weeks ago. So
I'm sure they
um,
did early doors. I can't
yeah,
remember. It was a Burrow big game.
mm.
He just went crazy. And Jamar
I
Chase
mean,
big.
if you're a Bengals fan, as my daughter's been daft enough to decide to be, yeah, they drive you mad. But as a
Mm,
neutral, great fun to
yeah,
watch.
yeah, they are
Because
great
when
fans.
it's right, it's
I
yeah,
do think the Mixon injury or like that definitely seems to,
that's
and
going to
then
hurt them. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and you've had obviously Burrow hasn't been a they had the finger thing. I just think that they, they they just suffered a little bit more. Um, when everybody's potentially healthy, then I think they've got that team on paper and that they can put it together when everything's right. It's
Mm.
very good, but missing one player or half a player, that it just shows they've got no real depth for me in there, you
No,
know,
but
or
I
where
think they're
else to
still
go.
still a
No, I
work
mean,
in progress, still
of
a
course
young
it is,
team.
of
So
course it
yeah,
is, yeah, yeah. But it just sort of like highlights it, doesn't it, at the moment? And picking them against the Ravens is difficult for me at this moment in time. But hopefully they will. Hopefully they will. Right. Okay. So I'm on to another one that I'm going to skip, and I'm skipping the Chargers at Texans. Again, no real reason. Just again, we'd be saying for me saying very much the same things as I said before. There's nothing really highlighted that stands out to me that says you should be playing a player or shouldn't be playing a player, apart from the obvious, your obvious players at this moment in time. I fancy the Chargers to win it. Uh, yeah, that's there's not much really. I would say you don't know what Texans you're going to kind of get as well at this moment in time. They played quite well at the weekend, um, and yeah, that. But yeah, Chargers for me. They're on a bit of a mission to get everything right. The Chargers. They need to keep Eckler fit. I don't know whether he's going or not this week. But what do you reckon?
uh, well, I'm not picking the Texans, so
Yeah.
pick the bones out of that.
Yeah. Okay. So you got Jags at Jets, but you're skipping that one, aren't you?
Well, yeah, unsurprisingly, yes. Jags and Jets.
Battle for the
Jets
first
been
round,
all
first
right.
pick.
Yeah, yeah. Jets. They were all right against us at the weekend, but I'll
Yeah.
touch on Miami in a bit. Well, I'll mention it now. I'll probably cover it off again. Jets are one of those teams at the moment. If you've got half decent defense and something going on offense, you kind of always feel like you're not going to lose the game. And that must be really infuriating for Jets fans looking at it going, yeah, we're in it, but we're not.
Yeah.
And so, And Salah's, to compound it, I've just read on NFL.com. I think Salah's down with COVID now as well. So
somebody said they got 15. They got 15 people out.
Yeah. So again, it could be another one of those sort of Brown situations for the Jets. Not that it really matters, and certainly not at home to the Jags. So yeah, no surprise. I've skipped over that one.
Who do you fancy to win it?
I take the Jets. I think they looked okay. Like I said last weekend, give them due credit.
I think the Jags as well. I mean, I think the Jets have got Michael Carter back this week. I mean, I know he played some snaps last week, but it was definitely limited. And but if he's fully back, they'll have their run game going. And
the Jags have got bigger problems as well.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think the Jags will want that first pick. That number 1 pick. I don't necessarily. Well, obviously, nobody's going to not want it, if you know what I mean. But I do think the Jets have actually. It's more important for the Jets to get things going, get some confidence going, get some performances under their belt, get some wins. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, it's nice to have the number 1 pick, but if you've got number 2, number 3, well, yeah, it's still not bad. It doesn't make a massive amount of difference. Well, it hasn't really this year anyway, not yet anyway. So yeah, so yeah, you can take from that what you will. But
the Jags are going into the draft for the first round pick, and they'd like a new head coach, please. So it's I mean, who didn't see that coming? I mean, yeah, let's not get started on
no, not on that idiot.
On he who shall not be named. So right, so where we go next?
Bills at Patriots. So it was all about time out for these two. So yeah, I'm not really going to talk about that game because I feel this is going to be completely different, and yeah, it'd be pointless talking about the way that went because that was a masterclass of play in the conditions. So that shouldn't come into it this week. Hopefully. Probably playing the COVID. But anyway, this week 15 was a bit of a walk in the park for the Bills against, mentioned it earlier, this poor Panthers team, this mixture of what they're doing as well. It wasn't, I mean, you had Robbie Anderson taking jet sweeps, and I think he actually rushed a couple of times. It was all a little bit, it was just weird. He hadn't had any of this usage before. He saw the most amount of targets that he's had all year, which is great for, I've got a fair few shares of Robbie Anderson, so I was quite delighted about it. But
yeah, I dumped all mine about 6 weeks ago. So I was thrilled watching that. I was like,
but it's the consistency in the performance and what they are. I mean, and when you're talking about, we're here meant to be analysing and looking at what teams are going to be doing this week and stuff like that, and you look at the Panthers and you go, oh, are they just making it up as they go along?
I don't think the front office know what the coaching staff don't know who they're playing. So
they haven't got a book. They haven't got a playbook.
They need one.
They chuck that out. So yeah, it's just, but so straight.
They've got a coach by numbers book. I think they're colouring it in as they go.
But yeah, so as for the Bills last week playing against them, it was just a difficult sort of game to. When I watched it back, a lot of the things that we probably predicted didn't happen, and a lot of the players where you thought, but again, because there was so much randomness going on when Carolina had the ball, then, and not in a positive way. So it was just all a bit random. So, the DLs actually scored quite well. So top scored F.A. Obada, top scored. He got himself 2 sacks. And DB Tyron Johnson, he scored well. He got himself a sack as well. But really looking at the points wise, that was pretty much it to mention. I was expecting the Panthers to try and run the ball down the Bills' throat because the Bills have been struggling with the run game. And they chose not really to do it. They did it in bits, but again, just bizarre. But there we go. This week, I expect the linebackers to be back in play for the Bills because, as we're talking about the Patriots, and we mentioned it earlier, Patriots met the Colts last week, and both of the Colts linebackers scored particularly quite well. So you would expect the Bills to potentially do the same this week. So, because the it's going to be run. It's still going to be run heavy from the Patriots. I know it didn't really work last week, but they will still stick to their normal game plan, and they would just make sure that their O line does a better job. That's I'm sure that's where Bill will be concentrating on what he's doing, and also he'll hope to have Damien Harris fit. They missed Damien Harris just generally just for mixing it up in the way that he runs. But yeah, let's not go back on about that. Talking about the Pats though, I mentioned earlier I loved last week's game, and it didn't go to plan for the Pats. I mentioned obviously what they didn't not. It was in comparison to the Colts, so they didn't really do a great deal wrong. I didn't feel up front they still seemed to kind of do their job. It was just I thought the O line of the Colts was exceptional. It's difficult, you can criticize teams for playing badly, but then are you sure that they did? And in that case, I'm not sure they did. I think it just clicked really well for the Colts. They were moving together, they were doing things really well, and it just all paid off. But other things went wrong for the Pats. My boy Kyle Duggar, he got ejected from the game. That was quite incredible.
Naughty Kyle.
Naughty Kyle.
Naughty
Wow.
Kyle.
Yeah.
No presents for you.
Yeah, it was Pittman, wasn't it? It's bloody Pittman. I don't like Pittman. Anyway.
No, it was a bit.
I don't like it. I really don't like him now. But yeah, but anyway, and also, so really, it was DB Devin McCourty. He scored over 15 points, and everybody else was quite a way under, to be fair. So it was a real quiet IDP week for the Pats, and it's something that they're not used to. So how I see it going this week, I'm going to go Bills, but I want it to be the Pats, obviously. But yeah, I just think the players to highlight in this game, the obvious ones would be, you would definitely go Milano and Edmonds, the linebackers from the Bills. But from the Pats, I would go Duggar and JC Jackson again. I would stick to that. I would stick to what I would do against the Bills and say, they're going to be still high usage to Diggs and what's his name, Dawson Knox, players like that. I think they're missing Cole Beasley's out, I've heard, but they'll just give it to Gabriel Davis. I expect who else will fill in like they will, but they'll still use those. They'll rotate through them, so I expect still. And if there is a bit of pressure that gets put on Josh Allen, you never know. But yeah, that would be my call. I would go linebackers from the Bills, and Duggar and JC Jackson for the Pats. But I am going Bills.
Yeah, I'm going to as well, actually. Partly because I agree with pretty much everything you've said, and partly because a Bills win actually benefits Miami in the very slim hunt for a wild card spot. But Josh, I've been critical of him at various stages this season, but he seemed to have his rhythm back. Was moving around well.
Nice to have a nice rest as well.
Yeah, but
it did feel like that in stages. It just felt like they were just walking around a bit of training.
But so yeah, I'll go with I think it'll be tough. It's going to be close.
I know I don't want to keep going on about it, but I do really love watching the Pats and whoever they come up against, because it becomes a tactical battle. Watching Bill Belichick games against any of the games that you see against Bill Belichick in the past as well, that's the tactical element that comes into it. That's like the sick part of the game where you go, it's the great part, but it's also, not necessarily the sexiest part of the game to say, oh yeah, look, watch these two neutralize each other. But
well, I spent too many years watching non-sexy football win things in the AFC East, so I think we'll kill that one there. So on that note, yeah, I'm definitely going for the Bills. Right,
Rams at Vikings. I got you.
Rams at Vikings. Yeah. you may notice that I have, as I said to Nathan, I am skipping over the Bears at the Seahawks. Again, for similar reasons. There's not a lot there for me. Seahawks, who I'll touch on.
Did you fancy to win that one?
I
You
really
might as well
don't
cover
know.
it.
I mean, yeah, we agreed we'd take it. I mean, the Seahawks look like they've got some serious issues, and not just on the field. Just like they've lost. They don't seem to know what they're doing. Russ Wilson dropped back a couple of times and had sort of passes that you kind of expect him to make, and he didn't. He took that one beat too long, and you go, why aren't you? I'd expect you to make that sort of 9 times out of 10. The Bears, Justin Fields under the offense isn't great. I don't know. I mean, that for me, and part of the reason I skipped over it is there isn't for me a lot of sort of a lot to talk about on the IDP side. It for me, to be honest, mate, it's a real toss of the coin game. It's one of those where it's about the only game that I would look at down the list now and go, I kind of don't care. I'm not really invested or interested in either of these teams.
I wish I was the same. But obviously, I've got Russell Wilson. I've got a big share in Russell Wilson going into our home league, and he's.
I was hoping we get through the entire pod without a Russell Wilson rant, but go on. We're on it. We're on it now. So.
It's going to be so difficult because I've picked the Seahawks to win, but I know why I'm picking them because I'm hoping the hell that they will. But the fact is, I don't know. Like you said, I mean, it's two really badly.
He's missed Lockett. I mean that was the thing.
Lockett's back.
Yeah, so Lockett's back. So what I was highlighting was the fact that there was at least one pass. I think most of the pundits highlighted as well, where he did take a step back, and DJ Metcalf's gone.
Yeah,
and you just think, and he sort of lollipopped it over, and you go, Russ, just there didn't seem to be the confidence there in that throw, and you go, and it was batted away, and you go, that's kind of what's wrong with the Seahawks at the moment. You get that right, and you're a potent offense again. But
yeah, I feel like the DK Metcalf. I mean, again, we're going really off key, but the DK Metcalf usage has been quite interesting this year. I mean, everybody picks him up as a top wide receiver one, and he's been outplayed and targeted by Lockett, and Lockett is now classed as he's the go-to guy that Russ targets, and it's not just that's red zone as well, and that's DK Metcalf sometimes he gets used like for me sometimes gets used like Kyle Pitts does, like this kind of big tight end kind of guy rather than more the wide receiver, because the slot stuff he's not really getting bits and bobs, but not much, not enough to give you a wide receiver one in PPR to go, hang on a minute, he's not like Keenan Allen, and especially when Lockett's getting 7 receptions and Metcalf hadn't even got one yet at half time and stuff, and you go,
I think Lockett's that sort of Russ Wilson, let me get under your safety blanket,
But Metcalf done a bit of everything last year and the year before, and this year just seems to be, I don't know what's quite good, but that's
why I understand. I mean, I had Tyler Lockett in one of the home leagues quite early on in the season. I did trade him away, but I'm sort of restructuring. Yeah, okay, let's not sort of. But Metcalf was the one going off the board in all the, and I kind of got that, and that made sense early in the season. And then Russ has sort of dropped back into this, I don't know, this again, like a bit of a safety blanket going, well, if I haven't got Tyler, I'm a bit, I don't really want to sort of gamble on anyone. I don't know, weird. But
it is weird. And then when
things going on in Seattle.
But when you flip it over to the Bears, again, it's like, I mean, I watched Justin Fields and I got no, for me, he's my ever quarterback. He's one of my, he's my rookie QBs, him and Zach Wilson that are on my bench, but I'm going to keep Justin Fields because I still think Justin Fields is going to be a QB1 because he's got that rushing upside and he's got, and he shows real glimpses of it now and again. You go, wow, there's some really good stuff there. But then, I don't know. And then it's like that they're not letting him. I don't know who's calling the shots, and whether he's being told not to run too much.
the only thing I would say about these two teams is I'll be very intrigued to see what happens with the coaching staff in the off season, for different reasons as well.
Yeah,
I mean, the Bears are, I think for me, the Bears are poorly coached, and I can see a change there. I'm surprised it hasn't come already, but and then you've got the age-old power struggle, sort of, Pete Carroll and sort of Russ, and so I think, yeah, it could be interesting. But anyway, like you say, we are getting off piste, and yeah, I will go with the Seahawks because
I'm
I
gonna.
think the Bears are
I'm
too banged up on defense for
yeah,
kickoff.
and it's at Seattle, where
Yeah,
I just think
so
there's a chance as well that a lot I hold up for it. The matchup's particularly good for Russ, and if he has got everybody back, there's got to be a game where surely that they just say, "Oh, sorry, you can start airing it out and go for it." I mean, if
yeah,
I don't know,
why not? They've
maybe
got
not.
nothing to lose now.
Yeah,
They're not
why
making
don't
the
you just
postseason.
say? Just say sod it. Pete just says sod it. We're gonna let Nath win his fantasy title, and then you go to town,
Let
Russ.
let Nath cook. Right.
No, don't. I'm awful.
That's why we're sending out tonight. So, right, am I cracking on with Rams at the Vikings?
Yes,
Yes, right. So, just for a bit of fun,
you do it. You
so
do the
Nate
Vikings.
said last week he was finding it too hard talking about his Vikings every week, so I'm stuck with them this week. But I got to be honest, that's fine. Um, I've said I did say last pod, they might have learned from few close games they've had, and they might just start to come good at the right sort of time in the season. I also said they beat the Bears, despite Nath being a bit and they did, and by some Christmas miracle, it wasn't in overtime, it wasn't last kick of the game. It was a comfortable win. Was it a good game? No.
No,
No, let's be honest, it was pretty poor.
but
But to
yeah,
be honest, but if I were a Vikes fan, I'd kind of take that at the moment. I go,
that's
you
what we
know what?
used to.
I'll,
That's what
I'll
we
have a
used to.
I'll have a nice doer, comfortable win, and we can just go about our Sunday and be quite happy. So, anyway, another big surprise would be in the Vikings' top performer, who was Mr. DJ Wonnham, with 41.5 points. Anyone who backed that, fair play. We'll give you a job.
if you started him in your playoffs, fair play. You are
You've got
tough. You got
you've got to
big
be
old
you've got to be laughing, or you're in the poo bowl like I was in our home league.
yeah.
So yeah, and just to put that in context, by week 11, and he did play in every game, he'd only racked up 39.5 points after 11 weeks. Right, this is how mad this season is at the moment. So. But to be fair, I will say he did score well in weeks 12 and 13. But Sunday was off the chart. 3 sacks, 4 QB hits, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 forced fumble, and he's now joint sack leader with the Vikings on 6 for the Vikings on 6, joint with Daniil Hunter. To be fair, again, to put it in context, Daniil Hunter got those 6 sacks in the first 7 games before the injury. So again, let's try and be sensible.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, would I pick him up this week for this matchup? No. 3 sacks against rookie Justin Fields, and we've already talked about the Bears briefly, is one thing. There's no way he's going to replicate that this week against Matt Stafford and this sort of Rams team. Elsewhere for the Vikes, briefly, another DL, Richardson picked up 16 points, forced fumble, 1 recovery. And Mr. Kendricks at linebacker picked up his sort of, slow week for him, 13 points. And finally at DB, someone who Nath's highlighted once or twice, Mr. Cam Dansler. Again, only 13 points, but, he had a forced fumble. And, we sort of quite like Cam. So moving over to the Rams. 2010 win last night over the Seahawks. These notes might be a bit of a mess because I had to do them today because the schedule's moved all over the place. But anyway, so win over the Seahawks, go 10-4, level with the Cards in the NFC West. Defense played well, albeit, again, we've touched on the Seahawks, clearly a side with a few problems. Top performers, Von Miller had definitely his best day for his new-ish team. 22.5 points, including a sack. Mr. Donald picked up his mandatory sort of sack, 11th of the season, got 20 points. And Ernest Jones, 16.5. Leonard Floyd, 15.5. At DBs, well, Ramsey, Taylor Rapp, they all had decent games. Defense generally, put up some points. In terms of the matchup, and this is a funny one, and I'm quite glad Nathan bounced this one over to me. I like the Vikings, and I've said this to Nathan before. They've been fun for the neutral, good to watch. They're currently in the playoff picture. Number 7 now. So, but they've done it with a defense that's currently ranked 29th against a pass and 27th against a run. And then on the flip side, you've got the Rams, who are 10-4, but I'm still a bit sketchy on. They still don't instill me with that confidence they're going to go out and do it every week. So, but the Rams, to be fair, they're going to be facing a better offense this week in the Vikings, rather than the sort of lackluster performance of the Seahawks. I don't see, the sort of scores in IDP for the Rams this week that we've just seen. And, as always with the Rams, the defense, if you're looking to pick someone up outside of Von Miller, there's not much out there on waivers, so you're kind of playing safe. But I do expect it to be a more competitive game, than both teams had in Week 15. So playing safe, looking at tackle numbers, safe bets for the Rams. Aaron Donald, obviously. I suppose the key question is, and I've touched on it, the one player you might be able to pick up on waivers is Von Miller. Would I take a punt on him this week? If I was short a DL, I might, because you can, again, he's one of those sort of LBs that you can slot in there. For me, he does look like he's settled in a bit better now in the Rams team. There's a good chance, if you are short of DL and you can get him, I probably would slot him in, actually, to be honest. There's a good chance he goes for double figures this week, but don't expect anything like the score he put up sort of last weekend. DB wise, Jordan Fuller's due back from COVID, so again his tackle record speaks for itself. Taylor Rapp still a solid pick for me. Again, 73 tackles on the season, 3 picks, and to be honest, Troy Reed is still the pick of the bunch at LB. So the Vikings, like the Rams, to be honest, the main picks are easy, but they're all going to be rostered. Linebacker Eric Kendricks, like Donald's for the Rams, he's nailed on 127 tackles this season, 5 sacks, 2 picks, blah, blah, blah. Don't need to talk about him. The key area for me this week is going to be in the secondary. The DBs for me will have to try and minimize Cooper Kupp, because, all right, albeit against a mediocre Seattle team, but again, he just showed what a key player he is. And, obviously that means safeties, Harrison Smith, Xavier Woods, the safe picks, because they're the tackle numbers. They're going to be dropped, going to be there or thereabouts, going to be busy. But if Mike Zimmer and the team can do a job on Kupp, force Stafford to throw somewhere else. And I know, everyone's going to bang on about OBJ, but I wouldn't mind taking a punt on Cam Dantzler this week, to be honest. If I did have to pick anyone on either side of the ball, if they can do a bit of a number on Kupp, if they can put some pressure on him, they're not going to take him out of the game, but and especially following, and Nathan may have a brief word about this, but the fallout from their top corner this weekend, Bashar Breeland, which was a bit out of left field, but the guy got a bit of previous. If I had to take a punt anywhere, it might be on Dantzler. Summing the game up again, I'm going to go with the Vikings. I know it's a bit out there. I've just got a hunch. I still think the Rams have got a wobble in them. I still think the Vikings are decent on defense. I don't think statistically those defensive numbers I've looked at for the Vikings are necessarily, I don't think they paint the whole picture of what the Vikings have been this season. They've been in lots of games that they should have won. The Rams possibly will win it, but I just think, the Rams for me, as I said, I'm still just a little sketchy on.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you a little bit on it. I think that the Vikings. I think we've just the way we've played offensively is been, that's the driving force really from our side of things, is the fact that we've constantly scored, so we're never often out of the game, and that's been the difference in previous years. So teams have always got to play, they've got to play well 4 quarters pretty much. That's what it seems to have been like for teams that are playing against us. um uh, and that's that. Like you said, you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said the Rams are a very interesting side, because for me, like you said, they do rely so much on Cup, and it, it worries. I often worry about their plan B as such. Cup does so much that the thing is if he's out, or if he's not 100%, or if he's having an off day, does that neutralize everything? I'm sure it doesn't, but it is a question to ask. When you've got one player on the team that is that dominant, it,
Mm.
it always it will always. I don't think there'll be
And as I
anybody.
say, I mean, you've got OBJ in the lineup now, and he's
Yeah,
played all right. But then outside of that, you go, well, who? Well, they've got Jefferson. Is it? It'd be sort
Van
of,
Jefferson,
yeah. Sonny
Tyler
Michelle
Higby.
has sort of turned up and sort of
Yeah,
done okay, but yeah,
yeah.
I
I mean,
just
I agree. I just think it's just the fact in this kind of game as well, where it is going to be. I think unless they stop the Vikings, but that's where nobody really has done a great job of stopping the Vikings. You know what I mean? We've lost games this year. We've lost games more than teams have sort of beaten us from
yeah,
that point of view, and that's where the Rams have got to be. They've got to be on it. So it'd be interesting. I mean, the Rams are still favourites, but for me,
yeah,
it's one of
but
those games where you go,
and it's also one of those matchups. I mean, you've already covered off sort of the Colts and the Cards. I mean, you've got the Cards and the Rams sort of level pegging, and I could see a weekend as mad as this season is, where they both cock it up
yeah, oh
and
yeah.
lose the game and just go. I
But the
mean,
cards are the cards are doing it already, and I mean they've gone a little bit. D Hop's out, and I mean it does look to me that they just, I don't know. Kyler's not fully, or maybe he's not fully fit. I don't know quite what's going on. Obviously,
mm,
Edmonds has been out and now he's back, but I don't know. Just all a bit. It just, yeah. The Rams are in a better place anyway. It's just when you are reliant on one man so much, then
mm,
people will ask questions. But right,
yeah,
so going on from there, I'm gonna say, I will go Rams, because I believe they'll win it, but it wouldn't be the biggest shot. Put it that way.
yeah,
Um, so we've done the Bears and Seahawks, like we said. We're skipping that one. And Steelers at Chiefs, I'm skipping. Big game for me to skip, really, when it comes to the defensive side of things. I'll just say one thing. Obviously, I made reference to Nick Bolton um, not being not being the lead linebacker, and then he puts together one hell of a week. I think he had 14, 16 tackles or whatever it was, 14 tackles, I think it was. And he was absolutely all over the place. So I just didn't think when Willie Gay come back, he had a couple of weeks where his snap count was down. Maybe he had a knock and it wasn't well publicised. I don't really know, but he's back. He's back, racking up the tackles again. He had an absolutely outstanding week. So Nick Bolton's definitely in the mix. The only thing I would say about him is he has had those odd weeks now where he didn't have the same snap percentage, and that, you know, it might not be down to injury. I don't know. It might be just the fact that he's a rookie and they're limited, and they've got other linebackers coming back in. But he's not. He's not down there. I never said to get rid of him anyway. I just said to potentially bench him, whether he was a starter or not. But he definitely seems to be back in the mix, and I would expect him to be certainly playing majority of snaps this week after that performance. The Chiefs, if the Chiefs are fully fit, which sounds like they're not going to be because
no,
COVID is absolutely swept through them, if they are, I think they win and they win comfortably. If they're not, then, well, it depends on how much. But I know Butner's already out now. The kicker, they've just announced that again, which tells you that he's probably not vaccinated. Um, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see on all the others. Um, but yeah, that's one of the reasons for not doing it as well, because I thought we might not end up with any of the players that we say might not even be on the bloody field by the end of this week, by the looks of it. So yeah, we're going to skip over that one. I'm saying the Chiefs still win it, but I don't know. Do you want to call it, Bren, or should we just
Chiefs?
Yeah, just go Chiefs.
Are you doing it? Just bear with me 1 second, mate. I've got one of the dog scratching at the door. 1 second.
I'll go and do the Washington. So I'll do Washington football team at Cowboys. Washington, as mentioned earlier on, they didn't have a greatest of games against the Eagles in Week 15 defensively, but they've done okay. But Miles Sanders did exploit them. And Goddard found too much space in a pretty soft secondary, which is concerning as they're coming up against the Cowboys. I worry for them here as they struggled offensively against the Eagles and really couldn't put too much together. And coming up against the Cowboys D, it's going to be wishing them all the best from me. IDP points-wise from Week 15 for Washington was as follows. Landon Collins top score with 20 points. 6 tackles, an interception, and a fumble recovery. So he had a pretty decent game points-wise. I'm not a massive fan of Landon Collins. Find him often out of position, but he scored well. So he's one of these kind of safeties that he's getting involved in every stage of the game at the moment. So he's potentially quite a good starter if you have got Landon Collins. Another player is Jonathan Allen. He scored 19.50 points. That included 7 tackles and a sack. I mean, the things to count on Jonathan Allen is constantly these tackle numbers. He will probably be in for maybe not quite the same dose of run game, but it will sure be heavy because Dallas are running the ball through Zeke, Pollard, and Clement as well. So all 3 of them were involved last week, and I expect them to be again in this one. So Jonathan Allen is a very good start in this one. Cole Holcomb is why he led the tackle count with 10. So again, those 3 I would start, and I would start Landon Collins now. He's one of these players that, like I said, I don't particularly like him from an actual football perspective. He's not the player that he was, but he certainly gets involved, and he's worth a start if you can. Over to the Cowboys, and as mentioned previously, they beat the Giants in what was quite a one-sided affair, really, without really lighting it all up. So I'm not really going to go too much into them because it was a funny game sort of points wise. They didn't have to do too much. Actually, the DBs did it this time, but just going. I'm not going to talk really too much about that actual game because I've already kind of covered it off. This one, I would look to start the lot. I'd look to start DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, Trevon Diggs, Jason. Yeah, start Curse as well. He's another one you can start. Javon Curse. Yeah, I mean, but up front and the DBs against Washington, they scored big points last time out against Washington, and I can't see why they wouldn't this time. I don't even know whether who's going to be at QB for Washington, but it doesn't really make much difference. I think that there's some big points for the Dallas D, and I think it could happen again here. I really do. I'm going to Dallas to win it. I mentioned those 3 players from Washington that are all in play, and that bunch from Dallas. I think they could be top of the tree this week. I'm going Dallas to win. What do you reckon, Bren?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I mean, first of all, apologies for that, but as Nath will tell you, I've got sort of 2 huskies. So if you've got one scratching at the door, you either go and let them in or the door comes off. So, but yeah, I caught most of that. So apologies, guys.
When we missed the Broncos at Raiders as well, so you've just got to just go over that.
Yeah, so I'll scroll back to that. Yeah, I'm complete copy and paste what Nath said. Cowboys win. Washington, I think, have dropped off. Cowboys need to put their foot on the gas a bit because Philly are, they're not breathing down their necks, but they're sort of there or thereabouts. But yeah, it was one I was a bit torn about, actually. I was either going to skip this one or the Rams sort of Vikings game, and I couldn't do that tonight, to be honest. I thought I quite enjoyed taking on the Vikings this week. So, but the Broncos Raiders, I still think, despite the win, the Raiders, they beat up on a team that were, I think, did quite well. You know, given all the injuries, or COVID afflictions, or whatever, I still think the Raiders are done for the season. Broncos, again, you know, Drew Lock playing. It's just one of those games.
He's
Yeah,
just been named the starter.
yeah. So Drew Lock's going to play. To be honest, with Drew Lock playing, I'm a bit torn because I'm thinking I think he's a poor quarterback. But I think the Broncos got a decent D, especially the secondary, which I've highlighted in weeks past. The Raiders could turn up. I don't think they will. So if I was forced, I'd probably go with the Broncos win. But again, just two teams that are a bit all over the shop at the moment. So again, trying to drill down into it and pick, consistent performers. Yeah, difficult for me at the moment with those two. I don't know, what you think about it, but a couple of teams that I think have kind of lost their way a little bit at the moment, but they're still both there or thereabouts. But
I like the Broncos. I do like the Broncos, especially the defense and their run game. Yeah, I think they're a decent outfit, and I think they've got a bit of a platform to work on. Like you said, the Raiders for me, I think the season's not done, but it was probably done
I
a
think
while ago.
mathematically, like I touched on last week, I think mathematically they're still in it.
Yeah.
I don't think their heads are in it collectively.
I think it's quite a big gap. I need to check on it because I haven't looked into the actual Raiders and Broncos actual game, but that could potentially have some ramifications. That game,
they're I think they're both both 7-7. I think
something like that.
So
yeah,
I was like I said, I was a bit torn, but I just thought, yeah, the Rams Vikings game was, maybe a bit more sort of fun to talk about. So
yeah,
a few more sort of certainties in that game rather than the Broncos Raiders, where you go, yeah, well, this might happen and that could happen.
Yeah,
and
I could see the Broncos Raiders. The linebackers will probably score okay from the Raiders side of things, like they usually do, and then Simmons will do okay at DB for maybe a couple of sacks up front, but nothing that's going to be. Yeah, there won't be nothing. I would be shocked to see those guys from either team at the top of the tree.
I mean, if we were going to do a quick take on it, then you'd probably go, Max Crosby and linebackers et al. For the Raiders and the Broncos secondary. So that's kind of it, I think.
Potentially.
Okay.
So where are you your Monday night, your game?
This is it. Is this the final one?
Yeah.
So, right. God, I don't want to do this one. I really don't. Dolphins at the Saints. So, clutch game, Monday night. I'm not looking forward to stay. I am staying up for it, but I'm not looking forward to it. So, both at 7-7, both desperately trying to sort of fight for a postseason sort of pitch. But Saints, let's kick off with them. So, crucial win over the Bucks, and a scoreline that, let's be honest, wouldn't have looked out of place in Scottish Football League. But to be fair, they did an absolute number on Brady. 4 sacks. So, Cam Jordan at DL, 31.5 points, 2 of those sacks. David Onyemata, 19 points, another one of those sacks. CJ Gardner-Johnson had 19 points. Marcus Davenport, 18.5, the 4th of those sacks. Mario Davis, Marshawn Lattimore, both went over 15 points as well. It was a good day for the Saints D, definitely. Dolphins, coming off the back of that 31-24 win over the Jets, last home game of the season. To be honest, despite the scoreline, I touched on it earlier, I didn't really think we were ever out of the game, really, despite Tua lobbing around a couple of stupid picks. I just felt the defense in particular, there was an element of sort of control in the game. Maybe that says a bit more about the Jets offense, I don't know. But top performers, my man, as usual, Jerome Baker, 29 points, a couple of sacks. A DL, someone I've suggested picking up recently, Christian Wilkins had another good day, 22 points. Plus, and I've got to throw this in there, a great receiving touchdown and a fantastic celebration afterwards. Although how the fans lobbed him out of the crowd afterwards because he's weighing what, 340 pounds or something. Manuel Ogba, 20 points, including another sack. Brandon Jones was probably the standout DB, with 18 points and another sack. So the matchup for me is probably all about the defense. It's a great defensive matchup. Two good run defenses, but I think both teams will still try and get the ball down and run it. Miami are crap at it, but they'll try it anyway. The Dolphins' top 5 run defense based on the last 3 games. We've only averaged 85 yards per game. The Saints have a better running game, so they will try and pound the grounds a bit more. So the DLs and linebackers for Miami have got to be in play. Jerome Baker, okay, he's a gimme. So after that, I would still, in this matchup, look at, and he's still on waivers, Christian Wilkins. He's got 64 tackles, 3 sacks this season, and I think I've got a sneaky feeling he has another decent sort of day of it on Monday night. At DB, if I was going to take a punt on anyone, I'd look at safety Brandon Jones. He is out there on waivers. He's bounced back from a couple of games out with this elbow injury. Had 18 points, as I say, on Sunday. Prior to that, he scored pretty well and pretty consistently since week 8 against the Bills. So, yeah, you could go for Xavier Howard, waiting on a Taysom Hill pick, but it could happen. But, with 60 tackles and 4 sacks off 12 games, I just think Jones is a safer pick in this game. I don't see Taysom's not going to start lobbing it around. If he does, it could go bloody anywhere, but the Saints aren't going to let him do that. So in terms of the Saints, yeah, as I say, Miami will try and run it, but they're crap at it. But they do currently have better passing options than the Saints. The problem is a few things I saw from Tua on Sunday that worry me. The 2 picks aside, which were, well, one in particular was pretty poor. There were several throws that were really forced over the middle. 2 of them were tipped, could have gone anywhere. So for me, for the Saints this week, I mean, the linebackers have got to come in. Demario Davis is a must, especially with 95 tackles on the season already. And at DB, I would go with safety, Malcolm Jenkins. I just think, he's got, he's available on a couple of waiver posts. The other Saints sort of top tackler, Marcus Williams. I mean, to be honest, my main tip in terms of the Saints, and I have mentioned the guy before, would be in this game, corner Marshawn Lattimore. He had 15 points on Sunday, 64 points in the last 4 weeks. And bearing in mind, what I've highlighted with Tua, Lattimore has 18 passes defended on the season and a couple of picks to boot. I don't think Miami will get the ground game running against the Saints, not effectively. They're not good enough. And I think I've got a sneaky feeling Marshawn Lattimore is going to be a real pain in the ass on Monday night. I could be wrong, but Tua just, he was so consistent in the last sort of 4 weeks. And then I saw him kind of revert to type a little bit. And those forced throws, just forcing it over the middle, tip passes. The Saints DLs, yeah, I know they had a good day on Sunday. And, regular listeners will know I'm no great fan of the Dolphins O-line. But Tua has only taken 13 sacks this season. I wouldn't be banking on Saints because Tua will throw it away. This is why we're one of those notorious 3 and it drives me nuts. Nath will tell you, even if I'm not watching the game, if I'm in bed at the middle of the night, I'm watching it on my phone going, right. And within minutes, we've gone from 1st and 10 to punting it away and, well, it's 3 and out again, because that's what Tua will do. If he's not comfortable with it, he'll bin it. He won't take the sack. He's not a Russ Wilson. He's not one of those quarterbacks.
No.
So yeah, I would swerve the Saints sort of DLs this week, but yeah, I mean the only tip really, I mean, yeah, Christian Wilkins if you can pick him up, Marshawn Lattimore, I think I've got a horrible feeling it's going to be a bit of a problem for us on Monday. Summing the game up, I can't call it. My heart says Finns. My head says at home, Saints defense. Our defense is sort of competent. We have got Jalen Waddle and Javon Holland coming back this Monday, so that's as it stands at the moment. So I'd love to think the Dolphins win it, and they could, to be honest. But I think it's going to be an awfully tight game.
Oh, I've got such a problem here. It's difficult. It's difficult with me looking at this game because, like I said, I've got Russell Wilson, but I've also got Taysom Hill. So I don't know who to start in this one. It's a real interesting one.
Well, I think the key thing from that is I looked at the figures, and Miami's run defense and it was my major criticism back in the summer.
It's up there.
They couldn't stop the run. But I think in the last 3 games, they're only given up, I think I might have mentioned it, but something like 85 yards average in the last 3 games. So they figured out a way of doing it. Yeah. But Taysom but then you've got Taysom and Kamara sort of working in tandem, and you go, can we come up with a game plan for that? Don't know. The trouble is once they break through, they're gone. Even the Jets managed to do it a couple of times on Sunday. So
Taysom's in for goal line work, though, isn't he? That's what you want. You want him to, if you're going to pick him, it's just wondering whether it'll go down that route, or whether it'll be a low scoring game or not. It could be a low scoring game. That's what worries me slightly about this one. The only thing is, I don't know. I have to wait and see. I'm going to go for. I think the Saints. I've got the Saints to win it. I was impressed by their game management at the weekend, and that for me, I don't know whether they've just gone into that sort of. They might just go into their shell. That worries me from a fantasy perspective with somebody like Taysom Hill, because if they do, they could actually just grind the hell out of the game and just win it on 1 or 2 plays. You know what I mean? And that could be the sort of game plan that they go for. Keep it tight and win it.
It is, and that's the problem, because you could end up with sort of Taysom just tucking and running and playing safe.
Yeah.
And you could end up with Tua doing exactly the same in the passing game.
Yeah.
Just short, sort of 5-yard throws.
Yeah.
Out wide and over the middle, and just grinding out. It could be a really awful game to watch, and I can't believe I'm going to spend my Christmas sort of Monday night staying up to watch it.
I know. But what a call though. What a call fantasy playoff wise. But we haven't got to discuss that offense side of things. So thank God. Leave that to the other lads. Right. So yeah, that's it from us really. So good luck in your playoff semis and finals and wherever you are, toilet bowl matchups, whatever you're in. Good luck in them. Remember to have one eye on week 17 if you're in a semi and you fancy that chances in the final. So have a look, keep an eye on who you're playing in the final before you throw all your players that you need for that week away. So that's pretty much it. I'm off to check if any more Amazon packages have turned up. Hopefully not. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next week. Have a great Christmas, and remember, keep rushing.